We beat the sounding joy. We beat the sounding joy. We beat the sounding joy. Well, hey everybody. My name is Michelle Youngman with Christian Music Broadcasters. Thanks for joining us on this special Christmas Women in Radio Zoom event. Our special guest is Jody King. Hello, Jody. Are you there? I see your name.
Hi.
Hi, Jody. How are you?
I'm good. I just finished doing my Christmas nails, so now I'm ready.
Good. Good. Well, we're so glad that you could join us today and be a part of our special celebration. So just to kind of tell everybody a little bit about what we're going to do today, we've got some special ladies joining us along with yourself that's going to be sharing some stories. Our theme today is Rejoice. And so what a great time of year to do that in the midst of all the craziness that we all have going on, not only with our radio stations, but home life, and then you throw COVID into the mix. And so anyway, we're so glad that you guys have joined us today to be a part of our special time together. So over on this side, you guys know there's this chat that's there. We want you to use that as much as you want to. If you have questions for our ladies or just introduce yourself, we've got some special gifts that we're going to be giving away today. And so you're going to want to be posting there. We're going to take a drawing of everybody that posts there, or you can post something and use our hashtag, which is CMB Women in Radio during our time together. And that can increase your chance of winning today's prizes. So again, you can start by introducing yourself there. We've got different ways for you to connect with us. We'd love for you to send your pictures, and we'll post them on our Women in Radio Instagram page and post comments there and have discussions. So we'd love for you to join us on our Women in Radio forum as well. So if you're not on the forum and you want to be, all you have to do is sign up on the cmbonline.org page, and you can sign up for that forum, other forums, wherever you feel like you just want to spend time investing in others and others investing in you. So we've got our CMB Facebook page. We have our Amen prayer on our website that people can pray over the prayer requests there. So, but today, thanks for being here, Jody. We're going to ask if you don't mind opening us in prayer, and then we're going to hear more from Jody later.
Let's do it. God, thank you so much. What a gift to just have some girl time and to spend time with you. May this be just a pivot point in our day, in our season, where we get out of maybe the craziness of our headspace and we really just sense your heartbeat, God. And I'm just so grateful for this time. Holy Spirit, we know you're here. Just speak individually, and may this be a sweet time. Amen.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Well, our first special guest today is Jill Kaufman. She is the promotions director and weekend on-air host for 88.3 WAFJ in North Augusta, South Carolina. And she's actually been newly appointed as the liaison for business underwriting for WAFJ. And she started her radio career volunteering for the Joy FM in 2005. So something that I just recently learned about Jill is that she is a certified wedding planner. That is amazing. So Jill, we'd love for you to come and join us and share a little bit with us.
Well, good morning or afternoon, I guess by now. Mercy, the day goes by so fast, so fast. So thanks for letting me share with you guys today. And the verse today, it just is another reminder of rejoicing, and we get to do that. And it's a privilege, and there's so much richness in the verse that we're sharing out of Matthew. And it's a reminder to me to be grateful for God's goodness and his faithfulness and his promises, just like the guys saw that night when they saw the star over Bethlehem. And I just love that. So a little bit of story about me would be, I'm an Army brat, proud of it, did a lot of traveling. I still have traveled since my family left the Army service. And that's probably likely why I don't meet too many strangers. But yeah, like Michelle said, I did volunteer for the Joy FM, and that was just an honor. And little did I know that that was just going to be the beginning of what a radio career would be and why I'm here today. And I just loved that. I was volunteering with a friend of mine, you might know her, Carmen Brown, as she was the promotions director back then. But here's the fun part. She asked me to coordinate the Joy FM wedding. It was a $25,000 wedding. People were coming out of the woodwork to be a part of this promotion, and it was fabulous, and it was so much fun. And there was a lot of rejoicing. We had Joy as the bride. We invited Joy Williams to sing. It was so much fun, and it was the best promotion ever. And I wasn't even in radio per se at the time, so that was a lot of fun. But that was so much fun. I did become that planner, so I've had a lot of fun with that, and I have never had a bridezilla, so that's the best part of that. So I can rejoice in that for sure. But eventually the Lord led me to Fort Wayne, Indiana. I'm not quite sure why, but he knew, and he led me, and I sat at a cubicle for Wells Fargo Insurance for months. I can honestly say there was not a lot of rejoicing during that time. It was the worst job for me personally, but I did wind up right there in Fort Wayne. The Lord led me to 90.3 WBCL, and that's where I kind of started my whole promotions director life, and it was really good. It was a great team, a great way to start my career, and I was there 7 years. And you know what? During those 7 years, God knew what he was doing, and I was placed there for a reason. I went through some of the most difficult, heart-wrenching times of my life, and there was no star to see, and there was no rejoicing for a period of time. But God, that's what I see there. He pulled back kind of the curtain of my life and allowed me to rejoice and see the stars again. So I could go into all of that and encourage you, but just to know that God's goodness is always faithful. And then as God would see it, I would come full circle back to an RTN station, Radio Training Network, here at 88.3, where I do the various things that Michelle talked about. And I love that. And I get to rejoice in the goodness of God because of how he took me from a volunteer to today and all the life and hurt in between. So it was so good. And we talked about some of the challenges throughout the year and the holidays. The holidays are to be fun and exciting and rejoicing. And at 88.3, we've had some good things going on during the holidays. We've partnered with our family Y here, and we partnered with and collaborated with them on A Place to Dream. And that's where we collected bedding and sheets and teddy bears and stuffed animals and Bibles for children that don't have a place of their own to dream. So they provided beds, and our listeners came out in full force, and it was really good to see how they came through, even in the midst of COVID. And of course, we did have a concert. I know that sounds really strange. Not very many of us had concerts recently, but we just last week invited Jordan St. Cyr to join us, and we had a little bit of candlelight and carols, and we also had a little reception with cocoa and cookies. So that was an intimate night to celebrate the holidays here at 88.3 WAFJ. And one of our signature events that we do every year is our World's Smallest Christmas Carolers. Normally we do a big thing and I make a big splash here at the station for their families to experience. But because of COVID and the way we've had to navigate through that, it's all online, so you can see their beautiful faces. It's on demand, so you can click them, listen to them, see them in their little attire singing their favorite Christmas song. And it's really a delight to see them. And to a surprise of a lot of them, 25 of them are going to be highlighted next week on the air. So that's really been fun. That's part of what we do around here at Christmas, and it's just been a joy. And I rejoice all the time. Now, you may have heard that we are losing our station manager, Steve Swanson, and his wife, Susie. They're going on to retire and do some other God assignments. So we are having to make a shift, and we're having to remind ourselves of that star again, to rejoice, continue to rejoice, even though not rejoice because he's leaving, mind you, but rejoice because God is up to something good, and we're going to go through that together here at 88.3 WAFJ. So anyway, it's been fun. I love being reminded of the rejoicing we should be doing, and just a good reminder to share with you ladies today. And I look forward to hearing what the other ladies have to say today. Merry Christmas. Back to you, Michelle.
Thanks, Jill. And I'm glad that you clarified that you aren't rejoicing that Steve's leaving. So, so thank you for that. Okay, ladies, we're going to head down south to Australia. We have our friend down there. Her name is Laura Bennett. Laura takes care of afternoons now. She's been on breakfast. They actually call it brekkie in Australia. And she hosts a Power Lunch with Laura podcast, bringing together her love of good conversations, pop culture, curiosity, and brings that into the deeper part of life. So everybody, wherever you are, post a comment and say, hi, Laura, and let her know maybe where you're commenting from, since she's in Sydney, Australia. What time is it in Sydney even?
My goodness, it is just hit 5:10 a.m. on Thursday morning.
Whoa, 5:10 a.m. Well, thank you for getting up so early. And I've actually had the pleasure of being at your station. I love the people that's there. Just amazing people. So thanks for spending time with us this morning for you.
Oh, that's my pleasure. And we love you guys. I'm just so sad that I couldn't come across and visit all my friends in the States doing radio. And yes, I'm glad you like my headband. It's a little bit of Christmas fun. So hopefully you can take me seriously as we talk about rejoicing this morning, or this afternoon for you guys. But it's really been a crazy year. I think that is the understatement of 2020. But I know for us here in Australia at this time of year, last year, we were surrounded by smoke from bushfires, and people were in the stress and tragedy of losing homes and, not knowing what their Christmas, not knowing what the new year was going to look like. So on the one hand, 2020 has obviously brought so much, and we're in this global pandemic, but there's a part of us, and I know for me, who I live right near, I've got a lot of trees, a lot of bush right near my home. There's a gratefulness and a rejoicing for the fact that while this year is difficult, we're not where we were last Christmas. And in fact, we've had so much rain, even in this last week. It's like God's being faithful and answering prayers that, our land, our country would be protected, while we also have this other thing that we're wanting his answer to prayer for happening at the same time. So I've really, I think, learned a lot in this year that I'm grateful for, and understanding that faithfulness of God in the midst of other challenges, I think, has been really highlighted to me. But it's interesting for us as a station this year. Australia has been fairly fortunate in comparison to a lot of the global situation around this pandemic. We've been able to keep working, at least for us at the station. A lot of other people have lost their jobs, but it's meant that we can still be this voice of hope in our city, in our nation, when so many other voices are one of fear, one of sort of despair, I suppose. And I'm so grateful, and I do rejoice, because we can continue to speak hope into an environment that doesn't always hear it. And one of the things, interestingly, as I was thinking about what I wanted to share with you guys today, I found a devotion that I wrote probably like 8 months ago, more about finding joy. And so I wanted to share with you guys a little bit from that, because I feel like it brought a great perspective. In James 1:2-4, a verse that we're probably really familiar with, it says, "Consider it pure joy, my brother and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because we know that the testing of our faith produces perseverance. Let perseverance finish its work in you, so that you may be complete and mature, not lacking anything." And I find it interesting that so often we look to our lives, we look to our experiences to make us happy. But when we have lost a loved one, when you've got potentially friends and family members with this virus, when you've been made redundant, or just having a day that really isn't great, it's hard to actually feel like we can be happy. But the thing is, even if we don't have that circumstantial happiness, we can actually have joy, because joy isn't about our experiences. But if you think about what that verse says, it's about having a perspective on where the trial leads. So it's like, we're not having joy that everything's horrible. We're not having joy about the pain, but we're having joy about the fact that that testing of our faith produces perseverance. It makes us mature. It makes sure that we're not actually lacking anything. So we have joy because of the destination, not necessarily joy because of what we're actually going through. And so for me, joy in this year has very much looked like an appreciation for where we're going. And in my situation, it's a rejoicing in the contentment that this year has brought. Because like I said just a moment ago, I haven't been able to go to America, which was part of my plan for this year. There's so much all of us having been able to sort of step out and do. And so for me, I know that I have found a joy in the things that are in my hand, the things that I do have an opportunity to do. And it's kind of like a happily forced contentment, because I have to be in the situation I am. There's nowhere else to go. And so you kind of realize what it means to truly be content. And so for me, I rejoice in that. And that's been a huge thing for me. And I will say as well, on the note of Christmas and on how we celebrate and we do really find joy this year, best present you could give me is absolutely a spiced, flavored hot chocolate powder or cocoa. That's the best. When I open a little Prezi and there's my chocolate powder and maybe even some marshmallows there, I know it's going to be a good day. So thank you guys so much for having me. I do really appreciate it. Michelle, back to you.
Thanks, Laura. We've got people saying hi to you from all over the country here. So you can check that out in the chat. And don't forget, ladies, we've got some gifts at the end. And our good friend Beth Bacall is going to be drawing our winners based on from all the comments there and using the hashtag CMB Women in Radio. So even Sarah Taylor made a comment and said we could just listen to you all day long. That amazing Australian accent is awesome. So speaking of Sarah Taylor, Sarah has been around radio for a little while. She actually got her start at her station by being a listener. She's that classic listener turned intern turned full-time employee. And so some of you can identify with that. So she walked through the doors of KCMS Spirit 105.3 in Seattle 18 years ago. And she says that her key card still works. So Sarah believes that worship music changes the atmosphere around us. And that it is a weapon. A weapon is our melody. And I'm so thankful for Sarah because she has used that weapon on my behalf on numerous occasions, as she has been such an encouragement to me. So everybody say, hi, Sarah Taylor.
Thanks, Michelle. Thank you for that introduction. Yeah, and a small little bit more about me is that I'm born and raised in the Pacific Northwest. So Spirit 105.3 is the only station I've ever worked for, which is pretty, well, I found that to be rare once I learned how much people move around in radio. I tend to stay put. I'm married to Joel, and we have 3 wonderful kids. Olivia is going to be 14 on New Year's Eve. And Ethan is 8 and Nora is 4. So most of our stations right now are playing Christmas music. And the main reason that we do that is to attract new listeners. And then the hope is that they find this worship music to stick around into the new year. And what I want to talk with you about is a time in my life where the word rejoice came in a similar situation. A lot of churches open up their doors to welcome new people in. And I was in college, and our pastor said that our church was actually like a good thing, like it was growing, and we needed to build an addition so that more people could come in. And I sat in the pew and I said a very sincere prayer, and I asked the Lord. Our pastor said each of us should pray about what we would give to build. And I was a poor college student. And so I was like, Lord, what would you have me give? And that was the end of the prayer. And in the coming weeks, I watched other people signing over like cars, boats, second homes, like a lot of people making big sacrifices. And I was just like, what can I do? Because that church really meant a lot to me. It's where I found Jesus. It's where I was baptized. And so I was all about bringing more people in. At the same time, and I didn't see a correlation at the time, but around that same week, I had heard that Wheel of Fortune was going to be in Seattle recording. and people were going to audition, and they had a set of college students, like they had college week from Seattle. And I wanted to get off work early one day, and so I asked for permission to go audition. And if you're wondering, how do you audition for Wheel of Fortune? You just have to be really enthusiastic in front of the producers among a bunch of college students and stand up and like just really commit to calling out R. And then they do kind of a glorified version of Hangman, like you have to fill in a couple of puzzles. And a couple days later, I got a call that said that I was one of the 15 people chosen to be on the show. My grandma was thrilled. So I went and recorded, and I was nervous, and I was backstage, and there's Pat and Vanna and the wheel, and like a light bulb, I was praying. I was like, Lord, calm me down. And like a light bulb, I go out loud. I think I even said it behind the letterboard. I go, oh, this is how you're going to do it. This is how you're going to answer my prayer. Lord, whatever I win today is yours, and it'll go to the church. And so I ended up getting second place because stupid Devin won a truck or whatever. Anyway, so I got second place, and I won cash and prizes over $11,500, which they take half of that out for taxes. So at the end, I gave my pastor a check for $6,000. And when I told him the story, he was like, you've got to share this in front of the congregation. And I said, okay. And so this is the piece. This is where rejoice comes in. I was living with my dad at the time, my dad who hadn't ever been in church my whole life with me. He was a believer, but I mean, I'd given him a Bible on Father's Day once, and it just sat on the counter. And so when you're going to give a speech in front of somebody or a congregation, you usually need someone to practice it on. And I was like, I'm thinking I'm going to practice this on my dad. He's the only one around. And I was super nervous to do it. I was afraid that he would actually be upset at me for giving my money to the church because he was paying for my college. So he might be like, why don't you put that towards your school? But I had made the decision, and I was bold. And so I said, Dad, I'm going to read something at church, and I need to practice it on you. And he said, okay. So he sat down, and I read it, and there was silence at the end. And I'm like, what's going to come next? And he looked at me and he goes, how can I hear something like that and not rededicate my life to the Lord? And he said, I will be there on Sunday when you share that. So the following Sunday, I was up in front of the congregation, and I looked in the back, and for the first time in my life, there was my dad. So the whole prayer was, Lord, what would you have me give so we can expand this church, so that we could bring more people in? And little did I know the first person would be him. Michelle?
I'm sitting there wiping my eyes because I'm so moved by that story. And my team is texting me going, oh my gosh, what an amazing thing. Man, I have goosebumps. I've heard most of that story, but I didn't know the end part, Sarah. So that is just, wow, that's amazing. And I love when you posted the video of your kids watching you on Wheel of Fortune, and how you were like, they were so not into it, but maybe someday they will. But your grandma was, and that's amazing in itself, right?
Yeah, if anybody wants to see my daughter mocking me, it lives on my Instagram page. So Sarah Taylor Radio on Instagram. Thanks, Michelle.
Wow. Well, thanks, Sarah, for just sharing that amazing story. Man, awesome. Okay, singer-songwriter Jody King is half of the duo of Love and the Outcome, a Canadian contemporary Christian music husband-wife duo from Winnipeg. Do you say Manitoba? Is that how you say it?
That's pretty good, Manitoba. You were right there.
So we've got Australians on here all the way up to Canada. So they're, of course, now living in Nashville. And so she's here to share more with us today. Thanks for making time for us, Jody.
Oh, thanks, Michelle. So cool. It gave me an excuse to have some girl time. And
I love it.
I'll take it. I got my Christmas mug, got my red nails, and I got my sweater that my husband spoiled me with. I had to wear it. We had 17 at our anniversary, 17 years of being married on the 14th. And he surprised me with this beautiful, little bit itchy, but I'm not telling him that part, sweater. And so anyway, I have reason to rejoice because I am with a man that I could not live without. And I'm so grateful. So we'll start there. I feel like there's a lot we can and can't say or whatever, but man, it's good to say, like, I just love my man. And I also love that we leave a lot of space for each other to grow and be individual. And I don't know why I'm going on this tangent, but it's been a season of, we came together to be Love in the Outcome. We were two separate bands from Canada. And I fell in love with him because he was hot and loved Jesus. And I was like, that's my whole list. That's all I've ever wanted. Plus he looked like a young Stephen Curtis Chapman. So I mean, like, so I sold my trumpet and bought a drum kit and asked him to join my band. Long story short, started touring together and became a band together. And now we find ourselves 7 years later, had 2 boys in Nashville, Milo and Ziggy, 3 and 4. And we've been touring as a family, and it's just been together, mixing motherhood and career and all the things. And then I find myself during this COVID season with the Lord really nudging me to remember that I have value and worth to him, just as me. It's like people would ask me how I was doing, and I'd answer for my whole family, you know? And I didn't even realize I was doing it, but the Holy Spirit really highlighted, like, you know, I had full love and I saw you as valuable, just as Jody, before Chris, before babies, before being a mom. But it's almost like I believed this lie that I think culture sometimes tells us, that until we hit these certain marks, we haven't reached our full value or our full potential. And it's just not true. Like, we are valued for being his, not by what we've achieved. He's achieved it all. But I'd somehow lost the plot with that. And so strangely enough, being home during this COVID season, I've just been really paying attention to who I am with Chris, but also on my own. And writing a book was not in the plan. Like, I would have 100% told you 2 years ago, like, oh, no, I don't write a book. I write songs. Or no, I don't speak, I sing. Like, I had a lot of limits on myself. But the Lord sees us at full capacity, and he just wants our yes. I mean, that is what Mary did. Mary wasn't qualified in any way, new mom, and she said yes, full whatever you want, God, I'm there. And so that's what I gave my yes to, because I felt I needed to be obedient with it. And so it's been an interesting season. We do Worship Wednesday every Wednesday night to try and bring some good tidings of great joy to people that follow along with us, even though we have not been on the road. Obviously, our last tour date, I think, was February of last, whatever, like 10 months, 12 months, however long it's been. And so we can see our trailer full of merch out our window as we're playing Worship Wednesdays, trying to bring joy. But sometimes it's like, man, there have been days, like really, really hard days. And this morning was one of those hard days for me. I just woke up feeling mega overwhelmed, not overjoyed, overwhelmed, you know? And it's like, I had to really stop and take notice of how I was feeling. And that was my prayer. It was like, Lord, I'm overwhelmed. Can you just meet me here? You know, because I think sometimes we believe the lie that, like, he's ready to meet us once we figured things out. But it's like, no, in your fear, he wants to meet you there. In your overwhelm, he's right there. In your loneliness, he is beside you. Picture him beside you. So that's how my day started. Not overjoyed, but overwhelmed. I'm like, God, I have to speak on being joyful. Help me. And so I started writing down, how do we move through our overwhelm to joy? How do we even find joy in the midst of overwhelm, in the midst of whatever it is you're struggling with today? And I just took note of it. And these are like jotted down in my journal, just off the cuff. But we still need to show up, right? Even when we're feeling tired, lonely, discouraged, overwhelmed, stressed, we still need to show up for ourselves, for the Lord, for our families. And how do we do that, you know? And for me, my pivot point, it all starts with my verse of the day and moving toward his presence, not away from my problems, like I'm ignoring them, but just kind of going, okay, I'm not going to give energy to that. I'm going to move into his presence, because in his presence is fullness of joy. In his presence fullness of joy, not a little bit of joy, full joy. Doesn't mean our problems are gone. And I know we've all heard this verse a million times, but full joy. And so my verse of the day, this was probably my verse of the day about a week or two ago, but it's become my every morning verse. John 11:25 and 26 in the Message translation says, "You don't have to wait till the end. I am right now, the resurrection and the life." And I just circled, I am right now. And I just want to remind you of that in the middle of your situation, that he is right now bringing life, bringing resurrection. He's resurrecting things you feel like are dead, things that have been lost in this year. He's resurrecting those and moving the puzzle pieces of your life into place. He is right now the resurrection and the life. So I was like, okay, God, I'm going to take you at your promise, at your word. I need you to meet me and bring some resurrection and life to my overwhelm right now. So that's where it started, that step of faith, that pivot point out of my head into the Father's heart. I always have to attach an action step because faith and works, right? It's not that we have to do works, but as soon as I attach a movement, an action, a step to the faith, then it all like gets cemented in my heart. So I walk and talk with Jesus. That's like the next step for me. So I just walk and talk, and I say the verse out loud, and I'm like, okay, God, what am I missing here? Because you're not overwhelmed. You see the full picture. So can you give me your perspective on my situation? All I feel and sense is overwhelm. But could you just pivot me towards what you see? What am I missing here? And just talk it out. Give me your perspective, God, on my situation. Because as soon as I have his presence and his perspective, then I can start to move towards joy. And while I'm walking, I give myself permission to feel, because we have to feel to heal. My mom's always told me that, and my mom is always right. We have to feel to heal. And so I think sometimes as believers, we think we're not allowed to do that. You know, that saying that we're feeling depressed is like an evil thing to say, but no, if I don't get it out with the Lord, I'm going to get it out somewhere on someone. I have to get out my feelings and work it out with him. So that's what my walk and talk with the Lord is all about. Feeling my feelings, and also maybe not pushing through, but going to you. That's because I'm someone who I'll just push through, I'll achieve, I'll work, I'll get there. But that's something the Lord's been changing in me without tour dates and without a lot of those things in my life. I've just had to go, no, I'm not going to push through. I'm going to go to you with my feelings, with my overwhelm. I'm going to read my verse of the day and believe that it's a promise to live by, not just a word on a page. I'm going to attach an action step to it and walk it out with the Father and say, give me your perspective on my situation. And then I read the verse when Beth sent it to me, Matthew 2:10, when they saw the star, they rejoiced with great joy. And I just thought, in my life, seeing the star is just when the Lord, when I do this prayer walk with him and he brings light to the dark moment that I'm in. That's it. That's the star, right? That's that moment. And we need those moments all day, every day, especially now. You know, let's not guilt ourselves. Let's just allow his light to bring life to our dark moment. And so anyway, that was my morning. And that's kind of a snapshot of my year. And that's how I've been able to move in and through and towards him, even when I'm overwhelmed, how I can work towards being overjoyed. Back to you, Michelle.
I love like the practical advice that you give, Jody, because sometimes we get so caught up in what our day-to-day routine is that it's good to hear what somebody else does, because going into new year, like it's like a fresh start, you know? So
Yeah.
thank you for sharing that. That's awesome. Jody's going to stay with us. I'd love for the rest of our special guests to come back, and we're going to ask them a couple of questions. If you've got questions, post them in the chat, use the Q&A feature, and don't forget, we're going to be drawing some lucky winners here at the end. So Laura, you said something during your time about just that you've learned so much this year. And so I'd love to ask us all, and just 2020 was, I'm sure we all have our crazy stories of how our lives have been impacted. And what I've told myself and told my family is like, we can't waste this experience, right? And so it's like God is trying to teach all of us something different. And so if we don't learn something, then we've wasted the opportunity. So Laura, you had said that you've learned something. I'd love for you to share, like, what's one thing God's taught you in 20 that you hope to change your life moving forward going into 21?
Sure. Thanks, Michelle. As I said about contentment, I can't get away from this year without that word just sitting in my mind and going around and around, because I'm somebody, like I imagine many of us, who is really driven, really wanting to grow and develop, and from a professional point of view, take my show further, take my podcast further, develop what I'm doing from a professional media capacity. But then also personally, I want to make sure that I'm not wasting any part of my potential or any part of my capacity. I want to fully utilize all of it, for better or worse, maybe. And this year, some of the things I had planned, some of the things I had lined up, from my perspective, were really going to help me do that. I was going to develop in so many different areas, and then it all just kind of stopped. And in so many ways, I became really grateful that I hadn't traveled, that I hadn't, been in situations where I might have got stuck, something might have gone wrong. I instead was home and was kind of like grounded, like sort of forced to be grounded, in the sense that not just from like a perspective of being grounded as opposed to being really like, airy fairy, but it was like I was just stopped. And I think that actually really helped, because I thought, okay, God, like, I trust you, and I know that even if I think these are my plans, you actually have one that's better. And like the innovation that we've experienced in this year because of the things we've been forced to adapt to, or just personally stopping, like still having vision, but not being so driven by the vision and the out that you don't address the inward and the present. And for me, that has been something I've really learned this year, because I can imagine and dream all I want, but there's some practical realities to what that's going to look like at the moment. And just that deep sense of what I'm doing here is enough. What I'm doing here has value. What I'm doing here can grow me. It's just been such a deep sense of satisfaction that actually has fed with more focus the other things that I want to do, if that makes sense. So rather than doing those things, because kind of like what Jody said, rather than like doing these things or looking at these things like they're the complete picture, it's realizing like this picture actually is complete, this picture has value, and I'm going to do that to add to it, not to make it matter more, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think that so many of us can totally relate with the grounded feeling. I know I'm asking Sarah, I'm like, what's the weather like there? And she's like, I haven't been outside in a week. I don't know. So Sarah, for you, what does that look like, taking what God's taught you in 2020 and how that changes you for 21?
I think that for those that are on the air, being a DJ to me is being a professional noticer. And when we have the opportunity to notice what others are doing, the good news, like obviously any one of us knows where to go for bad news. So if they're coming to our station for good news, the more we can share those stories, just specific ones about each individual person and what we notice, whether it's in the grocery line or like for me, for my neighbor, she's a nurse, and so I just kind of ask her questions and then make sure that I put that back on the air so that people feel seen, especially in the isolation. That's the thing that has always been important for me as an on-air talent, and this year more than ever, and I'm gonna just power through into 2021 with that same mindset.
Mm. And what I love about that, Sarah, is like, where else can your listeners go to find that hope, right? And so there's so many other sources for music or programming, but yet it's that message between the songs that you guys do so well at delivering that. So thank you for being that light to them. Jill, I know for you, like 2020 has probably been, with the changes of leadership there at your station and on the personal side of things. So for you, how would you answer that question about what God's taught you in 2020 and how that changes your 21?
Well, it was interesting because at the very beginning of this whole COVID thing, I said, I'm not sitting here. I am not sitting here without my Bible study. So I got some girls together in Indiana and in Georgia here from my church, and we kind of come together as a new group of friends, and we studied God's word. And one of the first things we did was Christine Cain's 2020. And had she known when she wrote that study that it was going to be 2020 when we decided to do that study, it was fabulous. And it just took us to seeing people the way God sees them. Take it apart, see them as he sees them. And that's pivotal in this time, especially when people are lonely and everything else. So that even took me to a whole nother level. I was just so excited. I decided, okay, I'm going to take Bible classes. I need to know more. I just need to know about my God even more. And so I took some biblical training classes online to just dive in a little bit deeper. And that depth is just going to propel me into 2021. So I look forward to more.
Do you have a plan to start out 21 with what you're doing?
With the online Bible study, it was a Zoom. Study. Well, we've talked about that. We've talked about being able to come back together. I've had the girls here. We've done some separately. When things started opening up, the other girls kind of went off onto their churches and their groups. But we talked about coming back together and just seeing how each other were, maybe do another study together online. Who knows? We'll just let the Lord lead. But it was just rich, just bringing women together online on Zoom Bible study. It was great.
Oh, awesome. So Jody, you were talking about, how life has changed so much for you, and being on the road doesn't look the same today as it did this time last year. And so through that, what has God taught you that you can take into 21?
I feel like I'm always learning how to let go, and it's just really hard. I don't love it, but that's just always the lesson. This year it feels definitely a lot of unlearning and learning. We live on visas in Nashville, 3 years at a time. Our visa's up for renewal, but we're on a performance visa, so you have to show that you've done stuff. So literally it's like, so I'm always working against my achievement mentality. As great as it's a superpower, it's also my demise, because I'm always like, I can do everything. But that's literally what our visa is founded on. So just not being able to show that you've toured, having to show 3 years in advance, there's so much letting go and just going, okay, wow, I don't know the way, but I know the way maker, and that is all I have to hold on to. So that's been tough, and just needing, I do much better, like before we leave for a tour, because touring with toddlers and stuff has been hard. I always need such clarity on calling. And I don't mean like overall calling, big picture calling. I need like specific, like, we're going on the road, God, this costs us a lot. Like, just, it's hard, but I'm so in. I just need to not compare my Christmas to anyone else's, but I need to know what you're calling me to bring. What's the message that we're bringing? And as soon as I get clarity on that, I'm like all in. But in a season with no touring and being home and feeling like that's what we're supposed to be doing, there's just been a lot of going, okay, you still care about me in this season. You don't just care about what I can do for your kingdom. You care about me and your kingdom. You care about me. And so I just really felt like the Lord said to Chris and I, like, I know you feel stuck, but I'm still moving. You're not stuck because I'm still moving. You're never stuck when you know me, but you just need to trust that I'm still moving. And so just a lot of letting go and trusting, and yeah, it's hard.
That's good. That's good. And so freeing, right? Because there's nothing you can do to change the situation.
Yeah, so, exactly.
Better for it to be in God's hands, right? So thank you for sharing that. Ladies, we're going to invite Beth McCall from the Fish in Atlanta to join us. She's been looking at all the comments, and she is here to share with us who and what some of our giveaways are. Hi, Beth. Let's see. Let's get you to unmute yourself.
Hi. Ho, ho, ho.
Merry Christmas.
I feel like I should put on something red.
Well, we're going to turn it over to you.
Really great, you guys. Thank you so much for all your amazing, amazing words. We've had so many people checking in on the chat. and on the Instagram and on the Facebook page. So we're going to go through each presenter. Some of you already touched a little bit about on the gift you would love to give. This was Michelle's idea. She said, could we do something like an Oprah, give it away? And I'm like, you got the cars? We'll do this with cars, Michelle. Cars and trips. So every one of our presenters, told us what they love to gift. So we're going to go through each of them. And you who have been participating on Facebook and on the chat and on the Instagram, just by your comments have automatically made you eligible for these cool prizes. So Jill, can you just give us a little glimpse about your journal? Jill's got a journal that she's actually going to send you with. Share what you're going to do, Jill.
Yes, I love giving journals. And what I do with the journal that I would give somebody is I write a personal note to them to encourage them, just to encourage them. And that's just a gift to them in and of itself. And then they can journal their life away, whatever that looks like. So that's going to come along with a Dunkin' gift card, because I'm a Dunkin' girl. So whether it's coffee or latte or donuts.
And that's going to be sent to Denise Harper. Denise, we found you on the chat and on Instagram. Thank you so much for liking the CMB Women in Radio. Congratulations, Denise. We're going to move over to Laura's hot chocolates. You spoke a little bit about those as what she's wearing, guys. I mean, is this like too funny? Thanks for getting up so early. So do you have hot chocolate? Is that how you wake up?
I mean, I should. I haven't done that this morning, but that's a really good idea. I need to do that, get my marshmallows out.
We're going to send Laura's favorite gift of hot chocolates, flavored hot chocolates, to Cindy Nyberg. We found you on Instagram. So Merry Christmas, Cindy. Thanks for joining the CMB Women in Radio. And Sarah Taylor, you have to explain the book that we are gifting. Sarah likes to gift a really cool book. Can you explain it?
Sure. If anyone's familiar with comedian Jim Gaffigan, we all know that behind a very funny, powerful man is an equally incredible, powerful woman, and wife, Jeannie, is his partner in comedy writing. And she wrote a book, and I was captivated by it, because how could you possibly take writing your story of having a brain tumor the size of a pear that is threatening your life while raising 5 young children in New York City at the height of your career? And yet, when you read this book, her deep faith is interwoven throughout it in a way that even if you were an atheist, you would still keep reading. I just think it's incredible the way she's able to be so authentic to her faith, but make it accessible to all. It's laugh out loud hilarious on every chapter, but it's also deeply impactful. And if you ever feel overwhelmed, all you have to do is pick up the book and be like, I don't currently have a brain tumor with 5 small children. And the way that she's able to go through the whole thing, I can't stop giving it to people. So there you go.
Because the pandemic's not perspective enough. Thank you, Sarah. It's called When Life Gives You Pears. And you are sending your gift to Jacqueline Mestry. We found you on Facebook. Thank you for participating in today's CMB Women in Radio Zoom event. Thanks, Sarah. I think a lot of us are going to go look for that book. And speaking of books, look familiar? Okay, everybody, let's do the Jody. This is my copy with so many notes of words that I want to remember. And then even after hearing you speak right now, Jody, you said, feel the heel. So we have an autographed copy of your book. Can you just tell us a little bit about that? And I know you spoke about it a bit in your time, but just what do you want to say to the person who's about to get your book?
Oh man. Just keep showing up. That was what I was trying to do. I started penning the book really just as journal entries when I was on the road with Milo and Ziggy, newborn and 18 months old. And honestly, like the song and the book kind of came at the same time. I was backstage. It was our first show of a 40-date tour. And I was nursing Ziggy, and I was just like way over my head. And I just was like mad. I was kind of mad because the Lord was asking me to show up and be public with my life in a season that I didn't know what I was doing. And I like to win at life and look like I'm winning at life, but I was not winning at life. And it just felt super vulnerable. And so I just yelled that out. I was like, God, you got this, because I don't. And I wasn't laughing, I was crying. And Chris heard me. He's like, babe, write it down. That's a song. I'm like, okay, man, we'll write it down. So it's just like me trying to figure out how to show up, like all of us need to, day after day in crazy seasons of life, and letting go of this perfect thing we have in our head and realizing that he's holding us together. That's how we show up. So it's just page after page of embarrassing stories of my life, but just real honest ones, and a verse of the day, and then a question to journal.
Yeah, it's a wonderful read. This one's autographed. You'll see Jody's signature there. She looks so good in red. And Sean Marie, this one's coming your way, girl. Thank you so much. We found you in the chat, and we really appreciate all the encouragement that you've been giving these ladies as they have been speaking. And our illustrious leader, our Michelle Youngman. You're the reason we get to meet Michelle. So thank you for making sure that there's a block of time for the CMB Women in Radio. Thank you. What is your gift?
Well, I'm not, unfortunately, a coffee drinker. And so the coffee pot that we have, I'm sad to say my mother-in-law bought it for us in 1996 because she liked to have coffee when she came and visited us. And so anyway, fast forward so many years later, and I started using a Keurig for like hot tea and hot chocolate. And I was like, I had no idea I could do that. And so, so I'm like, let's give somebody a Keurig. So that's what we've got.
Ooh, and Jody from Compassion. Jody from Compassion, that Keurig is coming to you. And we found Jody on the chat and on the Instagram and on the Facebook page. So thanks for rocking all three with us today. We really appreciate you. Thank you so much, guys. This has been so much fun. Can we ask Jody to end our time in prayer?
Yes. Woo! Thank you, Jesus, for such an uplifting, joy-filled time, because that's what you promise us in your presence, fullness of joy. Thanks for these incredible women and every single woman streaming online. Thank you that whatever we are all walking through, you are walking through it with us. Amen.
Amen.
Yeah.
Thanks everybody for joining us. And oh, guess what? Tomorrow is Beth Bacall's birthday. So you guys be praying for her tomorrow, that she has a special day, because she has a special place in our hearts here. So God bless everybody. Have a great Christmas, and we'll see you in 2021. Thanks, everyone.